that's me. That's my way to try to build a better and more equal world for the future generation.
Thank you very much, Luanny. The third speaker is Marina Byezhanova. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you so much. So Marina is the co-founder of Pronexia, founder of InfluenceHR, and a personal branding architect, and she's based in Montreal, Canada. Marina, could you help us know more about yourself and the D&I history you have? Please, thank you. I think you're on mute. You're on mute, Marina. Can we unmute Marina? Donna Marie? Still on mute?
Marina, you need to unmute yourself because it's not a live Teams event.
So unmute. Is there a button to unmute? Okay, let me try to do that.
From my screen, I cannot unmute you, Marina, because this isn't a live Teams event. I'm not really in control of the entire session. It's telling me that you're unmuted on my screen.
Would that help if you just disconnect and connect?
I'll tell you what, Boone, go move to the next panelist, please, and I'll troubleshoot Marina. I'm sorry, Marina.
Okay, my apologies for that. Like I say, I'm beginner, so I'm not a trained moderator here. So the fourth speakers on our panel is Ruby Syed. Ruby is the head of ATM advocacy at IATA, and she led the diversity and inclusion program in IATA Montreal. Ruby is based in Montreal, Canada. Ruby, could you share more about yourself and the D&I history?
Thank you, Boone, and good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be part of this fantastic event, and congratulations to the team at SITA for putting it together. My name is Ruby. As Boone mentioned, I work for the International Air Transport Association, IATA, based in Montreal, Canada. We represent airlines worldwide. I come from a technical background, so being a woman from Jordan in engineering and in the technical side of aviation, that provides me with a lot of stories that I can share. But within IATA, we have been working for a long time on progressing our diversity and inclusion program called Mosaic, and I am the lead for that program in the Montreal office. I do have a day job in addition to that, so I work in the ATM infrastructure department, leading technical work related to air traffic management with the team that we have here. Happy to be here with you, and thank you, Boone. Back to you.
Excellent, thank you so much. I'm not sure whether Marina is back yet. Yeah, you want to try to speak, Marina? You're still showing on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, Boone. Two things. One, Marina, can you try to drop out, disconnect, and come back in? I'm being told that sometimes when we mute all, some people don't come back in. So Marina, if you would just disconnect, we'll give you a few minutes. While we're waiting on Marina to come back in, for everyone that is not a panelist presenting, can I please remind you to mute your PCs, your phones, and shut off your video? We are getting a lot of feedback, and I'm having a lot of folks tell me they can't hear. So again, if you're not presenting, please put yourself on mute. And please turn off your video. We much appreciated. We'll give Marina a moment to come back in. Boone, why don't we move to the next presenter?
Yes, thank you, Donna Marie. Next speaker we have is Yendelela Holston. I got that. Hopefully I got it right this time. And Yendelela is the partner with and the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Kilpatrik, Townsend, and Stockton, and she's based in Atlanta, US. Yendelela, could you please introduce yourself and share with us your background on DNI?
Yes, can everyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I am with a international but U.S.-based law firm at Kilpatrik, Townsend, and Stockton. As Boone mentioned, I am the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, so I'm the first person to hold that role at the firm. The legal profession is often late to the game, and so we are just increasing our focus on it. But I oversee the implementation and the strategic leadership of our diversity and inclusion efforts for the firm.
Thank you very much. Donna Marie, do you think Marina is back?
I think I am.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay.
Thank you for fixing this issue. I have to say my biggest fear, and I will explain why, is being muted, is not having a voice. And so as I'm trying to unmute myself, I was sweating. I was born in the Soviet Union. I grew up in post-Soviet Ukraine. I experienced the true meaning of censorship and what it is like not to have a voice. So this is why not having a voice, like, you can't hear me, is literally my biggest nightmare. I had a hard time fitting in when I was growing up because of a Jewish father, because of trying to conceal that we're Jewish. Hence the reason I have my unpronounceable Eastern European last name, which you pronounced impeccably well, Boone. Thank you very much. My parents didn't want to know that I was half Jewish, had to conceal that. Came to Canada, felt that, finally, freedom of speech, I can speak up, I can, express myself. Experienced very different kind of bias here, which was biased against immigrants, and quite a bit of it, which was really hard. Worked on dropping my really thick accent as much as I could, went to university, felt, now it's all good, graduated from McGill prestigious school, couldn't get a job until I dropped my mother tongues off of my resume, and only then I was able to get a job. Became an entrepreneur, was the only woman on the board of directors, was the youngest one in the group, again, got a lot of comments and a lot of looks. And so it's something that's followed me throughout my career, and something that diversity, inclusion, more so even belonging, are topics I'm really passionate about. I've had a privilege and opportunity to host an event with Ruby's team with the Mosaic Initiative in March, International Women's Day, which was phenomenal. And I'm just so honored and thrilled to be part of this phenomenal group of people here. And kudos to you for organizing this exceptional day for your teams as well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
I have a call at 12 o'clock too.
Okay, so thank you so much. I guess we already feel a lot of energies here. I'm just mindful of the time, so I'm trying to go as quickly as I can so that we give the panel to the speakers here. So quickly for the session, as the committee described, our background, our personal experience, society, stereotyping, and cultures context can have impact on our decision and action without us even being aware of what is happening. So unconscious bias can affect workplaces and organizations, heavily influencing recruitment and hiring decision. It can also be a huge roadblock to creating a truly diverse and inclusive workplace. In this panel, we will discuss some of the items mentioned, why organizations need to actively work against the impact of bias, conscious or unconscious, and what we can do to become more aware of our own. So without further ado, so I'm going to start that discussion soon. We have a total of 5 topics. Because of a time constraint, we have allocated 8 minutes for each topic. We'll have a main speaker to present that topic, and then followed by second speakers. And then if we have more time, I'm not sure whether they have, and then we will extend to the rest of the speakers. So if I will get started with the first question that we prepare for. So number 1, how do we become aware of unconscious bias? This is first, I think we have invited Luanny to be the main speaker here. Luanny, over to you. Thank you. You're still on mute, Luanny.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. We can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think the first thing that is really important is to say, to understand that we all have biases. Each one of us, we have it in a different way. It will depend on the culture, the influence we had, but each one of us, we have a mental map or a life map, some people call it, and it built with unconscious biases. So it's the first step to become aware is to understand. You must understand me as a Brazilian, as a Black woman. I do have my unconscious biases, okay, and you have, all of us, we do. So to work with it, we need first to one of the most common unconscious bias is called black spot that make us think that everybody else has biases and we don't, or everybody else has prejudices and we don't. So this is the first step. Secondly, I would say that it's a matter of practicing. So it's an art of observation. As the unconscious bias are internalized beliefs, we are, and it's deep inside of our brain, so it's trick to see it. So we must examine our thoughts about our people, about the people that we meet. Okay, so when you have a bad thought about someone, I would say try to do the following exercise, like a question yourself: how long do I know or do I work with this person? Later, think, how well do I know this person? Why do I have this feeling toward this person? Is it based on my interaction with him or her? Or is it based in another, something that another person told me about this person? Or did I conclude something based on that person's background, skin color, nationality, or something like that? So do this exercise when you feel something bad, any bad thought about someone, because identifying, being aware of the unconscious bias, it is an exercise. It is practicing, an art of observation. Okay. Summarizing, I always give like 6 steps to do it, to become aware of the biases. So the first step I always say, recognize that we all are biases. So recognize it. The second one is, when you have a bad feeling, a bad thought about someone, stop and think, would you apply this judgment for someone else that it's in your group, someone else that you know, someone else that you are part of your family? 3, I always say, be careful with your thought. So look your mental association. We do it all the time. We put people and things on boxes. So be careful with that. And 4, live daily with diverse people. This will help you to break the stereotypes that you have. Okay. And 5, pay attention. What happens? We work all the time automatically. We work, we do things automatically. So step out of the autopilot. Be careful and aware of your consciousness. And the last step, I would say, connect emotionally with the theme. So it's important to understand, as I said, but to feel as well. Like, do you want to be a better person? Do you want to build a better environment for your work? Or do you want to build a better world? So feel emotionally connected to it. With these steps, I'm sure that you can be aware of the unconscious bias.
Thank you very much, Luanny. That was great. Marina, would you like to build on the same topic, please?
Definitely. Luanny, I love, love, love that you said we're all biased. I think it's important to admit because very often conversations such as these feel like finger pointing or feel like, oh, I'm a bad person, right? Yes, I just identified that's true. And then I'm a bad person. And then, of course, the self-protective mechanism kicks in and like, no, I'm a good person. I don't want to talk about this. I put up a wall, right? So admitting that, yes, we all carry bias. Now, it doesn't mean, and it's okay, period. No, we all carry bias. What do we do with it? So conversations such as these are key and important because self-awareness is the name of the game and it's extremely important. And then two things that I would add to what you said, your steps were phenomenal. You talked about associations and that we make those automatic associations, which just as human species, again, it's normal because it helps us to make quick decisions in general in life, right? It's just not as great when we're making, erroneous associations based on for other people, right? But in general, that's how we make decisions. So one tool that I found that was eye-opening and incredible is a tool developed at Harvard called implicit association test. It's free, it's open to the general public. You can just Google and do it. It's awkward and uncomfortable, I will admit, because as I started doing it, I was like, oh my God. Because just with my answers, I started noticing I knew what the answer was going to be, right? It's like when we do those personality tests, and we're like, oh, and then you get the answer and it confirms. But at the very least, it gives you self-awareness, and that's step number one. Step number two, let's listen to each other's stories and let's not negate them. If somebody says, this is what happened to me, and because I'm a woman, or because of my ethnicity, let's not just automatically dismiss or be like, no, must have been something else. Could have been something else, but could have been what I'm saying. So let's listen to it. Very, very quick story. I recently joined about a year ago a local business club. One of those, old school, fancy, big wooden doors. The furniture is antique and the whole thing is very intimidating when you walk in. But I joined the club. I was very excited. I'm an entrepreneur. I thought I'm going to meet other business people. I come to the first event that I'm invited to. I walk in. There's the manager at the door, greeting, welcome, champagne, red carpet treatment, and goes, hello, welcome, takes out the list of attendees and goes, who are you here with? And at first I'm confused and they go, oh, it's just me. Yes, I understand, but with... And so it took me a few minutes to catch on, but he couldn't understand that I was there as member. He thought I was a wife or maybe an employee that was invited, but not that I was a business owner that qualified to be a member of this club. And it was quite incredible, right? And so we went through this situation a few times, and I'm curious. And then, of course, he felt mortified and embarrassed when I said I'm a member. But then I'm curious to know when we have those situations where we're like, ooh, I did make a judgment there. Then it's a question of, well, what do you do with it? You forget about it, you write it off, or then, you start doing something with it. Or when people hear stories like these, when I'm telling the story, we can pause, take a moment and say, yeah, when have I made gaffes like that too? We all have, and, made a conclusion that was a little bit baseless and presumptuous. So those are the two things that I would add to your awesome steps, Luanny.
Perfect.
Yep, thank you very much, Luanny and Marina. I'd like to go on to the second question that we have. The second question is, how do you address unconscious bias in the workplace? For this topic, we have invited Daniel to be the first speaker, followed by Ruby. So Daniel, if you're ready, whenever you're ready, Daniel.
Thank you, Boon. I hope you guys can hear me. So as I mentioned, I work in ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization. And it's, of course, about aviation, which is, if nothing else, a big connector of people. It's one of the main enablers that has allowed people to travel and connect, whether professionally or touristically or for pleasure, whatever it may be. So that's imbued a bit part in the culture of the organization. In addition, we're also part of the UN system, which means that we have a bunch of policies and whatnot to ensure a broad geographical representation in the staff, which is quite great, actually, because just to give you an example, in my department, we're about 65 staff, and I think we represent just over 30 countries, from big countries as Canada, Mexico, China, to small countries like Rwanda, Moldova. So it's quite great that you have this opportunity, or at least I have this opportunity where I work to get to know a lot of people from different backgrounds. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any biases that exist in a workplace. In fact, it's an additional challenge sometimes because people come from one part of the world, behave a bit differently from people in another part of the world, and it can create sometimes clashes, tension, or misunderstandings. But ICAO, as part of the UN, has over the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years, especially the last 5 years, taken a lot of steps to try to address this. And the way they've done it, it's, Luanny mentioned it, you got to practice. And so what it does is it has mandatory courses for all staff on ethical behavior, courses against harassment, again, courses for diversity and inclusion as well. In fact, I have to take another mandatory one next month. And, I know what people think. They arrive at these kind of workshops, the seminars, it's 9 a.m. There's a facilitator that's just way too excited to greet everyone. And you're like, oh, where's the free coffee? Where's the cookie? This is a waste of my time. I have 1,000 emails, because everybody knows that emails are the most important thing in the world that you have to do. But guess what? It's the only way, and it does work. And maybe throughout most of the session, your mind is not fully there, but at one point there's going to be a moment, and there's usually small workshops with your colleagues, and they tell you their stories. And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, this person has a battle they went through, and you realize that it's very important that your work environment tries to encourage an inclusion and as neutral as possible work environment. So one step I would recommend, I think these are very good, and what you guys are doing today is a great example. You have to keep going every year. You have to have these mandatory sessions, make sure people, they go, and if nothing else, it's kind of fun. You get to learn more about some of your colleagues, you learn about yourself, and it's your own personal battle to try to overcome this challenge. And I think it's very laudable, and we should encourage this. And the tips that Luanny gave are very similar to the ones I've received in some of these workshops. So those are phenomenal. Thank you very much for that. I think that's it. I'll kind of stop there. I had a few other things, but essentially these are important exercises, and we should go through them, and hopefully it'll encourage a more inclusive, fair world. And these barriers, whether it's gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, they'll fall and keep falling, and we'll achieve that more inclusive world. So thank you so much for the time. And I really appreciate listening to these speakers. They're very good, and it's better I shut up and give them more time to speak. I think you guys will learn more like that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Daniel, so much. We have more time. We ask you to say the rest of the points that you could say. The second speaker for the same topic is Ruby. Ruby, would you like to build on that?
Thank you, Boone and Daniel, for the comments. And I think we can all agree the training, the tools, everything that Luanny and Marina also mentioned, they all help us. They all help us realize our biases, because unconscious bias is exactly that. It's unconscious. Sometimes we are not even aware that we have these biases, and we all have them. And the training enables us, and the tools that are available, they enable us to come to terms with them and to address them and to confront our biases. But I think, beyond what the organizations can do, we as individuals, we are also all change agents in our own circles. And this is where we can not only take the training and know about our biases, but we can also start addressing them and making sure that we become conscious of our biases, and by using the tools consistently, then hopefully they will disappear. And I think also it's sometimes not confronting maybe people in an inappropriate or an impolite way, but sometimes it's good to have a conversation, to have a discussion that something was not right there, or do you know how that affected the process? And I can tell you that it happened with me personally. One time we were interviewing for a position, and I didn't realize that I was actually more inclined towards a candidate because that person was an engineer, and it's because it's easy for me. I know the background. I'm going to support the engineer, but there were other people who fit the profile better, and it was actually our HR person who had a conversation with me and tried to walk me through questions to make me realize that, you know, I'm just maybe more inclined towards that person just because of the engineering background. And I think, you know, we all need to be tolerant of the other opinion, be able to have these conversations, and that goes beyond the training, where we create a culture of openness and tolerance in the workplace, and we can all have these conversations, share the stories and listen, really listen, so that we can all learn together and grow together. So I would add that additional, you know, personal dimension to what corporations and organizations can do and instate in terms of tools and training, etc., because we as individuals have responsibilities as well. So thank you for that, and back to you, Poon.
Thank you very much, Ruby. I'd like to go to the third question, that is, how do we avoid unconscious bias? So for this topic, we have invited Marina to be the first main speaker, followed by Yendelela. So Marina, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, I can hear. Thank you.
Yes, great. Ruby, you spoke about bias just now that you carried, and it was favorable in a sense, right? There's favorable bias and unfavorable. So you were making decisions in favor of the candidate because of that shared background. And of course, we do that so much. There's also the unfavorable bias, of course, right? Where we're biased against a certain group in, you know, our decision maker, just our assumptions, right? As in the story that I shared with you of the private club manager who just felt, you know, a member shouldn't look like this and welcomed me after. So it's not that he showed me the door, but just made that assumption, right? So unfavorable bias is definitely an interesting thing. I'll share a story with you. I love sharing stories. I own a headhunting firm. I've seen every kind of bias, unconscious but also conscious, and any type of discrimination that comes in requests from hiring managers and shockingly HR professionals as well. Okay, on the type of profile they want to see or likely they don't want to see. I've heard it all. I was working with this one person. She was head of HR at a big corporation here in Montreal. So definitely I would imagine there's diversity there. I kept presenting resumes to her for a position in accounting and finance until she called me and she said, Marina, those are great profiles, but do you not have any people in your database that are from here? And I assumed she thought that these people were overseas. And so I said, no, they're from here. Like this one is downtown, this one is in this borough, this one in that one. She goes, no, I mean from here. And I go, but what do you mean? And she goes, no, I mean people that are like born here with names from here. And so I pause and I go, but miss, name will remain unnamed. You're saying it to me. Have you seen my last name? And she goes, oh, no, sweetheart. I don't mean somebody like you. Somebody like you, I would hire with my eyes closed in a second. And so that showed to me once again that often we have bias because we're just uninformed, or let's even say ignorant, right? So she knows me and she says, oh, somebody like you, sure. But I see somebody with, you know, a foreign name, I assume they're different, not like you. And I told her they're better than me, but you won't find that out unless you meet them. They're also more qualified than me for the position in accounting and finance, so you should meet them. So the thing number one that I would say is when we catch ourselves carrying bias against a certain group, let's become less ignorant. And ignorant is a heavy and unpleasant word, but let's become more informed about that group, right? And that's something that you said, Luanny, too. Let's expose ourselves. Let's force ourselves. If we think that there's something about immigrants, they won't fit in. Say hi to your kid, Daniel. I've had a few of those in the COVID era. So let's expose ourselves to that group more, right? Let's make an effort. So in the case of this woman, if she hangs out around more of us immigrants, she'll realize we're capable, we speak the languages, we can do the job. And same with that private club manager as well, right? I would say expose yourself to the group, just hang out with female members. There's few of us, but we're there. and maybe that will counter your biases as well. So I think that is really important. If you feel that you're still struggling and you're on your way to really, not being automatically biased, try to take a blinded approach to decision making. When it comes to looking at resumes, for example, there's a new trend and practice that's happening in organizations where they remove identifying information from a CV and just look at skill set. There are AI platforms that are doing that as well. And I think that's fantastic. So we're looking at skill set first. Mind you, when somebody's really biased, it's still going to seep in stage 2, 3, 4, 5 of the hiring process. But at least let's stack the odds in our favor and let's just hang out with the groups that are maybe a little bit scary to us. I think that's an important step to take.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marina. Daniel, your kids is welcome to join us. So Yendelela, would you like to build on the same topic? How do you avoid unconscious bias? Yendelela.
Yes, thank you. And I'll warn you guys that I may have a visitor soon. Join your visitor. But Marina, I completely agree with everything you said. I love how you were talking about, challenging it. And I'll go back to what Ruby said, that we can take an individual approach to it. So we've talked a lot about what companies do, but it really is what an individual does. Both how you help people challenge their biases and also how we look at our internal biases. So for example, following Marina's lead and telling a story, challenging biases. I'm in the United States. Yendelela is an Angolan name. In the United States, typically Black sounding names do not get hired. So I intentionally go by my full name and don't allow people to call me a nickname in order to make people face their biases that surround names and know that a person with this name can be qualified, can do the job, and to basically just by my very presence make you challenge the stereotypes you may have. Also, I tell people to not get too comfortable in that they know their biases. I think they creep out all the time. And once a lot of people feel that, oh, I've taken the test, like I know where my unconscious biases lie, there's nothing more for me to do. And I think that's actually where the work begins, because you need to intentionally work to overcome and identify every day, and not to be comfortable in the fact that you know them, but to actively every day work against them and actively every day work to uncover what additional biases you may have and how you can address them. So I definitely think there's a lot of work that we can do as individuals. And I also agree with like the blind resumes and removing and just focusing on skill sets, but thinking as a company or an organization, what are the skill sets that we really need for success? And have we listed skill sets that typically, based on histories of our countries and what may have been available to women, or may have been available to people of color, or may have not been available to these groups? Are we searching for skill sets that will also perpetuate issues and they're not actually skill sets we need? And so those are the types of things that I think we can do both as individuals and as companies to help confront biases and help change it and move our organizations forward.
Thank you, Yendelela. Thank you so much. The next topic we have is about diversity doesn't mean bias awareness. What is your recommendation for companies that are diverse but still have not overcome bias? We'd like to invite Ruby to be the main speakers, and then followed by Luanny. Ruby, when you're ready. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Boone, for this question. They say that diversity is like being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance, and belonging is dancing like no one is watching. So as we look, for example, within IATA, as we look at the diversity and inclusion program and Mosaic particularly, and the activities that we do, it's more to promote an environment where people can be true to themselves. They can be who they are, and they know that they will be valued and evaluated based on what they bring to the table. irrespective of where they come from, irrespective of whether they have a heavy accent or a light accent, what is their family name, what is their ethnicity, etc. All of these things that sometimes, as a lot of the speakers have mentioned, sometimes when we deal with people who are different from us, we don't understand certain things, so we make some assumptions. And I think, you know, in different levels, we might have all made those assumptions. So it's about fostering an environment that can enable people to be themselves, because we also realize, for example, within IATA, that only when people are true to themselves can they be the best version of themselves. They can be most innovative, they can bring all the bright ideas, they can speak up, and they know that they are heard. And this takes a cultural management internally, not just with training, but it's consistent. It's a consistent activity at an organizational, management, and individual level. And you need to constantly remind the people that this is the culture. It's not enough just to take training. And I think it was said before, because training only might give you a small piece, but it's more about the practice, how you live it, how you live the tolerance, how you make sure that you exhibit this in your behavior and encourage others to follow on. And, you know, talking about the hiring process, the shortcuts that we have, which can translate into unconscious biases, are easy shortcuts. But also organizations, they need to realize that when you have very homogeneous teams that all look the same, think the same, talk the same, then very soon you will only have same of the old ideas. You will not have new ideas. You will not have different ideas. So I think it's also about quantifying the business benefit from not only diversity, but also how people feel, you know, within the teams. And that's a different measure. Diversity is maybe invited to the table. Inclusion is knowing that you are heard. Marina was talking before about being heard and having a voice and knowing that you have a voice. We sometimes have teams that are very diverse, but not everybody is talking. Not everybody is providing an input. Some people are shy, and different people need to be managed differently. And I think that becomes, you know, as we train ourselves to become more conscious about the differences, we become better at being inclusive in not just with the hiring process, but if we put a project team together, how do we make sure that not only are we diverse, but that we make sure that everybody feels that they are part of the team, important to the team, and that their views are so important to the company and to the organization. And one thing I just want to underline the current situation we are dealing with. One thing that I think the pandemic that we are all experiencing and you know, in different ways, it highlighted how it's important to take a step back, to rethink a few things, to take a pause and reevaluate and reflect and see how we can be better, how we can be better as individuals, as organizations, as societies. What are the different things that we need to do? And we were joking before the panel about remote working and virtual sessions and all of that. But we also have a lot today that enables us to connect the unconnected and to reach out to people that we were not able to reach out before, and to engage them in different ways. And we should make use of that. If technology cannot help us to create better societies, then what's the purpose? What's the real purpose of technology? And I think that goes beyond us thinking just in the workplace, because I think we need to think about how we want to be as individuals in a community and in a society. And that's important, and how we want to grow, and what are the things that we need to do to encourage that kind of tolerant atmosphere where we all know that we are all different, but that makes us so wonderful. Our differences and our diversity, it's what makes the human race unbelievable and innovative, and that's where all the great ideas come from. So we need to embrace that more and not be afraid of it. Thank you, Boone, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Luanny, would you like to build on that same topic?
Yes, well, Ruby, I love it what you said about belonging is dancing as no one is watching. This is new for me. I have heard the phrase until it's call to the party and call to dance. But the belonging is dancing. It's amazing. So it's something that I've learned with you. Thank you so much. And I totally agree that now the situation that we're living now, it's an opportunity for us to see all of us as one race, the human race. So unfortunately, that is one disease that it's connecting all of us, and it's giving us the opportunity to just change. But wow, adding to the question, I would say one more thing. That's make diversity and inclusion drive being part of your company's strategy. Because when you do like a one event here about diversity inclusion, another there, one diversity and inclusion week, but it's not something that it's in the day by day of your company, your employees will not understand that it's something that it's really important for your company. It's strategic for your company, you know. So your company must have goals, KPIs, and action plan regarding diversity and inclusion. It's really important for this. So everybody, well, yesterday I was an event with a client, and the CEO, the international CEO, opened the event, and he said, "What we are discussing now, it's something that is driven the mission and values of this company. The employee that doesn't want to think like that, doesn't want to be inclusive. Well, okay, there are a lot of other companies out there that he can go, but now it's part of what we are." So this is something really important, because we'll drive the employees to really think that it's something important for your company. And I would add as well the opportunity if your company that your company has to organize affinity groups, because as all of us, we said in different points here, it is important to have contact with diverse people. So so as it is important, it's important to give a voice as well, and the affinity groups, they will help you to do that, you know, to discuss what is important for each one of the groups and things like that. So, and also give a real space for them to work. It's not something like just to say that we have a affinity group. No, they will do something really nice for your company. That's what I would add. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Luanny. The fifth question is unconscious beliefs impact on our performance. Let us know if you agree and why. The main speaker we'd like to invite is Yendelela, and then followed by Daniel. Yendelela, wait already. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Boone. So I definitely agree, and on multiple levels. And one of the things that I think has kind of come out through our discussion, but I want to drive home, is that people need to feel as if they're included and they belong at a place. And even if we're talking about inviting people to the table, if you're inviting someone to a table, that's still your table. And there's a sense of, I'm a guest here and this isn't fully mine. And so I would love for our companies and for us as people to think about building a table together where where no one person belongs more than another person, where no one person has more ownership than another person. I kind of liken it to, if I am invited to your house, while you will treat me nicely and I will feel welcomed, I'm still a guest and I'm still on my best behavior, and I'm still not going to behave in the same way that I would behave in a table at my house. So maybe we're building a table together where no one has a sense that they have to put on a special air or be a different person. Because not being yourself does definitely impact your performance. But if you feel that I've invited you to my table, then the person who has invited you is looking at you through a different lens versus thinking, well, you're showing me how you belong here versus that you actually belong here. And if you're looking at people and looking for them to show you how they belong, you're also looking at them and looking at the ways that you don't think they belong. And so again, following Marina, I'll tell a story about when I started in my career. And very early on, just when I walked in as a Black woman, people looked at me as if I was dumb and didn't know and couldn't contribute. And so I wasn't even given an opportunity to contribute or to prove them. Like, I couldn't even show you I was dumb. You had already assumed it based solely on my demographics. And it turns out I'm not, actually. But that hurt them and hurt clients because you didn't have the benefit of my thoughts. You didn't have the benefit of my voice. And so that impacts performance, because you can give a better work product if everyone feels that they can contribute. That experience for many people often leads to imposter syndrome too, which a lot of diverse people suffer from, where you don't believe that you belong where you are, and you don't believe that you have something to say, and you don't believe that you have something to contribute, and so you don't. And so that also impacts performance, because you have people who have great ideas who are second guessing themselves, not believing that they do have these great ideas, and not feeling comfortable brainstorming or thinking out loud for fear that it's going to confirm your beliefs that they are not intelligent, that they don't belong in the room. And so that definitely does impact performance. And I think it, in addition to impacting performance, it stifles potential, it stifles creativity, and it stifles whatever output you're doing. It doesn't matter what business you're in, what your company is producing. Not having everyone contributing at their full potential means you're not doing the best that you can do as a company. It's going to impact your bottom line. It's going to impact performance. And it's also very important because it leads to turnover. If I don't feel that I belong here, I'm not giving you my all, and I'm always looking for the next opportunity. And you would hate to have someone with great talent, these great ideas, this next big invention, go to your competitor where they feel that they belong. So also not embracing people, not working against unconscious biases impacts the performance and stifles potential, because it leads to high turnover and people not being satisfied in their jobs and always looking for the next offer. So I feel like I've rambled. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this amazing panel and participating in your Diversity Inclusion Day.
Thank you very much, Yendelela. The second speaker for this is Daniel. Daniel, would you like to build on this?
Thank you, Boone. Sorry, before, hope it wasn't too distracting. My daughter kept wanting to watch, and her brother was trying to usher her away. Another playing something else. So actually, Yendelela said everything. There's nothing much more I can say to add that will, all I can do is echo. I really love what you said about getting people to really come out and contribute fully on their potential. And this is something that at our workplace, I would say is still existing. There is this kind of biases, and sometimes they're not based on a person's background, I mean, ethnicity and these kind of things, but on the position that they hold. So, you're in this position, so your opinions are not important. And that could not be further from the truth. You know, just because they're at a lower position doesn't mean that, and often nowadays, and probably other people can attest to this, people are extremely overqualified compared to maybe 50 years ago when the hierarchy and the structures were established. And you have these uber intelligent, uber qualified people in the lower positions, but that can contribute tremendously. And I find it's often a shame that they're not brought on board to really be part of the discussion. So this is something I cannot agree more with. You need to let people be part of it. You should not silence them based on any criteria, whether it's religion, ethnicity, or any of these things, but also on what their position. This is a bit of echo to what Ruby was saying before vis-a-vis recruiting, and she had a preference for an engineer, but there was other profiles that could also fit the role. So again, everyone has said amazing things. I'm just happy to be part of this and learning myself. And I think it's a continuing battle. It's something that never ends, and we have to strive to always better ourselves as individuals and better our immediate surroundings, whether it's workplace or family, and hopefully also the companies that we're working in are implementing actions that will help that. So whether it's the trainings, as I mentioned before, hiring processes also that try to mitigate any kind of discrimination, and really encouraging people to to share and be alive and be good people, I guess. So thank you, Boone, again for allowing me to give my 2 cents on this.
Thank you very much. Donna Marie, I was reluctant to interrupt any speaker. They are all very exciting. I only need 30 seconds to close, so whatever the time you could use for Q&A, please do. And let us know if we can extend, okay? Donna Marie?
Okay. I'm not sure we can extend the time, and
Okay.
I agree with you, Boone. The conversation was wonderful. I thank you to all the presenters. There's my reminder. Thank you to all the presenters. This was a wonderful conversation. I don't know if you see that there's a chat going on between some of the folks listening in, and it's been a wonderful session with all of your thoughts and all of your feedback. We don't have a lot of time. We have about 5 minutes. So if there is a question, you can raise your hand. Those of you that are listening in to this this wonderful panel, I will try to figure out who raises their hand first. But if someone has a question they'd like to ask a specific panelist, please raise your hand, and I will try to figure out if somebody. Let's just see if there's any hands raised. I don't think there are any hands raised. So I think give everyone a few more minutes. If you have any questions for the panelists, please raise your hand. I don't think I see anything in the chat. Just a lot of great comments, very informative session. Thank you for the session, great presentation. I know a lot of us really loved the building a table together, the dance initiative. My daughters are dancers, so anything that has to do with dance, I'm going to relay that one back to all of them. Those were all wonderful. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, wait, I see Mashama, your hand is up. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Donna Marie. The entire panel did a phenomenal job, and we appreciate all the great content. Marina, I had a question for you. You talked about the implicit association testing from Harvard. Do you happen to have a link that maybe you can share with the team? That would be great to have. Marina?
You're on mute. Yes, you're on mute now. Thank you.
I'm unmuted now. I'm good.
Yes,
you could just Google it. If you Google it, it will. If you Google it, it will. Sorry, somebody else is talking. I get distracted. Yes, that's the link. And just if you Google it, you will find it right away. And you have options of testing every type of bias you could possibly have. I'm just telling you, just like sit down with a glass of wine or tea, whatever you drink, because it does make things surface, and then you just want to like close your door and go into reflection mode. So just a heads up, because it's like tests you on absolutely every type of association you can have.
Wonderful, thank you. I think Fernando was next. I don't know if your hand dropped. I saw you and then it dropped away. Fernando?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you very much. The question is for all the panel in relation to bias and unconscious bias. How you separate unconscious bias from statements like because of where you're working, you don't know this market has to be promoted to work in there, and things like that. In general, smaller countries' offices employees are less likely to be promoted to lead to leading positions, and in general, the argument is well, this market is quite different to yours. It's too big, or it has complexities that you haven't experienced. But on the other hand, you don't have any type of program that could help you getting acquainted on that. So it looks more like an unconscious bias regarding the capacity of a person to adapt to the new market, rather than really putting that as the sole. The sole decision-making factor.
May I answer this? I have a very quick answer, if I may, for Fernando. Yes,
please.
I can go ahead.
Yes, please.
Fernando, I think one thing that we didn't discuss today, and it's really important, is our individual responsibility, not only on addressing our own biases, but also looking at what we are usually discriminated against on the basis of what, and also, embracing that. So what I mean by it, very often when we are discriminated against, we go into a hiding mode or into an imposter syndrome mode or whatever other mode, and we kind of go and try to blend into the background. I think that's the biggest mistake. We are all discriminated against on the basis of something. Like there's always something, right? Either qualifications, skin color, name, something. So I think it's really important for all of us to, be sure that we stand up, that we speak up, and that we are radically authentic to who we are. In the case of what you're talking about, to give a very specific answer, I think it's exceptionally important and valuable to build a strong personal brand where you can demonstrate your qualifications, you can demonstrate what you bring to the table outside of the little box that you put in because of the experience you have. So yes, the onus is on the companies. We talked about it a lot today. We need to eradicate it in the workplace. As human beings and professionals, we need to build our own personal brands that will also overcome a lot of the biases that come our way.
I'm going to go beyond the time by inviting the rest of the speakers to talk about this subject. The rest of the speakers, please feel free to.
I would like just to add one thing Marina said so perfectly, but it's just like when we talk about diverse people, usually we think about biology, like what your eyes can see, but it's not just like this. It's like a background as well. Where did you work as well? The language you speak. So your question was, how can I divide, separate what is unconscious biases and what is that? Everything is unconscious bias, okay? Because we have the conscious bias of group and things like that. So when we speak about a diverse environment, it's from people that think differently. Doesn't matter what your eyes see, because we are individuals. So that's it. So it's the same. It's close to.
Any other speakers would like to comment?
We have another, I think, question from Sasha. Sasha, did you raise your hand?
Hey, everybody. Yes. I have the question about this, personal conscious biases, and the question is how you will differentiate between your conscious bias and your intuition and previous experience. So when you are just evaluating yourself and you are saying, so it is conscious bias, but probably it's just your intuition. You met such kind of the person before. Not before, and you have some kind of the similarities, the way how the person is talking, the way, I'm not talking about the accent. I'm talking about the way how the information is, conveyed. And you are saying, and you are putting by default this person in some box. How you will differentiate between this conscious bias and experience and intuition? And
I would like to respond to that, if
Please.
you guys don't mind. So
Yes,
I
please.
think what you have described is what we call unconscious bias. That is when you're making a decision or a conclusion on a person based on your experiences or your thoughts about people like them in the past. And so we call it intuition sometimes, but it's making a decision on somebody based on something else. Now, if you're making a decision based on things they're doing, like you've run into a person and they're lying all the time and you're saying this isn't adding up, then yes, act on that. But if you're saying I've run into people that look like this person and all those people do that, she is now displaying those types of characteristics I've seen before. So I think she's now going to do these things. That is the bias that we are actively wanting people to work against. And you need to view people as individuals and allow them to show you who they are and not allow your experiences with other people to shade that. So I think that's my voice or opinion on it and how we need to work past it and how you identify it. And so being conscious of judging a person on something other than what they are showing you at that moment is, and then making sure you're not doing that.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Donna Marie, any other?
I do not see any other hands raised, and I don't see any other specific questions in the chat. Last chance, I know we're running a little over, but the conversation's going so well. I just want to give everyone the last chance. Any other questions or comments? Sadaf, go ahead.
Hi, I want to thank the panel again for such a great conversation. And just a question here. So if we are being victim of an unconscious bias, and we realize that the person pointing at us doesn't really mean any harm, but is unaware or uneducated, or doesn't think that it's inappropriate, or just thinks it's friendly, I mean, is this something that you recommend employees to report back to their organizations, not to target the other person, but maybe to create procedures or awareness or educational programs, you know, how they cannot victimize people based on, you know, what they look like or what they wear or how they represent themselves or certain limitations that they may carry?
I can start with that, and maybe the others can jump in. So I think there is no one manual that says when you see this, this is how you behave. And I'm saying this based on personal experience. So sometimes not every unconscious bias leads to a conclusion that affects somebody's performance, work, their sense of belonging into the workplace. Having said that, there needs to be some kind of education, and every organization would handle these things differently internally as to what is the extent that you can learn from. And I think Marina and others mentioned about sharing stories. And I'll just share a brief story. We had I had a colleague that I have huge respect for. He's a great friend, he's a great colleague, but sometimes he would refer to a young person who just joined the organization as, this is a very nice kid, he's a great kid, he's doing a great job, this kid. And he means it in a very, he doesn't mean it in a bad way, but it makes the other person feel that they are either not experienced enough, not intelligent enough, or not part of the group, or, you know, it's about how you make people feel within the team. So because I know that person, I didn't make a report to HR because I thought I would just talk to him. And I spoke with him and I told him, do you understand how you are making that other person feel? And he said, no, I didn't think about it. I mean, I just mean it, I call my son that. And I said, yeah, but you know, maybe they don't like it. So how about that you try not saying it and maybe not referring to him as a kid, and then see how he reacts when you have the conversation. And it changed the dynamic in the project that we are doing. So I think that, you know, you need to also have mindfulness about how you manage these situations. We are all change agents. We need to stand up to biases when we see them. And the extent of how that bias is impacting people around the person who has that bias needs to be addressed, whether it's an individual level or you need to take it with the supervisor if it's really harmful. I mean, these things are different. I think organizations create different cultures, different policies internally, but also as individuals, we need sometimes to make people aware, because sometimes they're not aware, or they think it's really great to call somebody great kid. I mean, it's a simple example, but it shows you that just how sometimes people are unaware that they have these biases internally. And I don't know, maybe Marina or the others would like to chime in as well.
I agree completely, Ruby. I was thinking the same thing to raise it. I would also encourage all of us to be open to people raising it and making us aware of the biases we have, and not responding with a I'm sorry, but a thank you. Being open to it, being thankful that you have been exposed to something that you didn't realize that you carried with you, and then willing to change it. Because when you're saying I'm sorry, then you get embarrassed, you go in your like cocoon. I think it was Marina who said it. And then it's more of a defense and not openness, but a thank you for helping me see something that I didn't know, and now I am aware and can move forward, I think is a great approach.
I think also, if I may add, it's because what you mentioned in the question was a great question, is what if the person doesn't mean any harm, right? And that's an important thing to mention. Often we do come from the standpoint, we don't mean harm, we don't realize, right? And so what we don't want to create is a police state where people are just afraid of saying anything and expressing any opinion because I'm going to say something wrong, I'm going to, HR is going to show up. We really want to be careful with that, right? If you do think, when I know the person is not meaning harm, I do say things. I do speak up. So when I was on the board of directors where it was entrepreneurs, all men, I was the only woman, and things were happening. I would get silenced. I kept being assumed that I was an administrative assistant there. Just things kept happening. I sat down one day. It was uncomfortable for me. It would be more comfortable to escalate it and just talk to somebody else. It was uncomfortable. But I sat down and I said, guys, I'm going to have to say something. This feels like a boys' club to me. This is why. These are the things. Let's fix it. And they meant well. And they said, what do you mean? And we didn't realize we had a great chat, right? Had I escalated it to our global office and then they would have heard about it, they would have shut down and felt uncomfortable, right? And likely would have wanted no women on the board moving forward, because then, things happen. I had a very similar situation to the one, Ruby, you told about a colleague. I was the one calling people kids. I was running a global student entrepreneurs award program, and they were university students, and I adored them. And I was like, my kids, until somebody pulled me aside and was like, they're not really kids. I'm like, they're entrepreneurs. And, can you stop? Maybe you shouldn't call them that. And I went like, oh, and yes, I meant it nice. But had that person again reported it, and I would have heard from somewhere else, I would have felt called out, my motivation would have been affected. So I think step one is let's just talk and be human. It's uncomfortable. It's definitely uncomfortable. And then of course we have HR, we have policies. As Ruby said, different companies have different policies. If it's not working, to then, take other measures as well. But step one, let's do this. Let's talk and share stories.
I would like just to add something. And this movement, I totally agree with all of you. And this movement can see something planned by the company as well. And some workshops that we do for inclusive leaders, for example, one of the things that we suggest is the leader choose someone to be the one that will give this tip. Like if I say something in a meeting, of course, you don't need to say immediately in front of everybody to that leader, but call me for a coffee and say, hey, next time, don't say that. Like I'm interrupting a woman very much. So we suggest that you choose like an angel to give you these tips. So it can be like a planned movement from the company as well to help the employees to do that.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Okay, thank you everyone for your questions to the presenters, to the panel. I'm going to turn it back over to Boone. We are being told to wrap to let other panelists be heard, I guess. But this was a fantastic panel. Thank you so much. Boone, back to you.
Thank you very much, Donna Marie. Wow, really, so much energy. We can look at the chat here and we can digest it later on. But I think Daniel have to leave. Sorry to keeping the speakers longer than we requested for, but we really appreciate. Thank you, Marina, Yendelela, Luanny, Ruby, and Daniel, of course, for joining us, speaking to SITA. Thank you, the SITA employee joining here. I think we are at here. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Boone. Great job.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.